Greetings, everyone. My name is Trebbie Johnson, and we are here for our May version of Earth Exchange Cafe. We meet here every month on a Wednesday to speak with people who are artists and thinkers and writers and doers who are looking at the hard things, especially as those hard things relate to the earth, and finding ways to make them more accessible and more beautiful. So we invite you to just relax and settle back, and bring your coffee or your tea or your chocolate, and perhaps it'll be an iced coffee or tea today, or a chocolate, since it's getting to be summertime. And imagine that you're in a lovely cafe with books and music and lots of interesting people, and that we are here to have a conversation with somebody who brings us yet a new understanding of how to be in relationship to what's heard in the world and what's beautiful. And I'm truly excited today to introduce Jess Rassp. I discovered her work kind of by accident for a remarkable performance that she did called Extinction Ritual, which we'll talk about. Jess is a puppetry artist and a producer. She's worked independently with various theater companies as a performer, designer, leader, and a puppet creator. She's inspired by nature and culture and mythology, and her work fuels environmentally centered narratives, inspires storytelling through the subtleties of creature expression, that's creature expression, and encourages audiences to connect with our world. So Jess, welcome to Earth Exchange Cafe.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to talk to you. So yeah, I mentioned Extinction Ritual. I can't remember exactly how I discovered it. I discovered it by Googling some strange things, which I often do, and they often lead to remarkable discoveries. So Extinction Ritual was an amazing combination of puppetry, dance, activism, and ceremony. So tell us about Extinction Ritual and how it came to be and what it was like.
Sure, of course. So the Extinction Ritual was part of a curated art exhibition called Birdland and the Anthropocene, curated by Lynn Parks. And I can put you in touch with Lynn. She's a brilliant and amazing artist. And so she commissioned me to create this work as an opening ceremony for the event. We performed the dance twice. And the whole exhibition centered around activism about bird extinction and human impact on bird populations. Lynn, for example, designs a window film that goes over city buildings in order to prevent birds from crashing into the windows. And she has also headed lights out campaigns that encourage cities to turn all of their lights out during great bird migrations. And so her work and her ideas are really, really far spread in that bird activism. And so she invited me to contribute by creating this extinction ritual, and she assigned 6 birds to portray, one of which was already extinct. And so I made bird skull masks that started in the center of the space, and the whole piece took place around a nest of sorts. And each of the 6 birds, we danced around the circle, flying in our migrations. But once one steps into the circle, there was a shift in movement. They moved in slow motion towards that bird skull mask. The bird skull mask was put on, and then various poses were assumed with the mask, and that continued. Each rotation, a new bird stepped into the circle and began that process until all of us had stepped into the circle. We're wearing the bird skull masks and posing in various statues. And the first bird that stepped into the circle was the one that was already extinct. And so it kind of showed that longer term impact of the species that we could lose and have the potential to lose if we don't change our human behavior.
In the costumes, I mean, talk about the costumes, because they were, they weren't specifically bird costumes, but they were evocative of birds, I'd say.
Yes, yes, I definitely was inspired by each bird's feather expression. So we had like a yellow throat that had, a yellow collar, but also like olive green wings. And I didn't want it to be very literal. These are feathers. And so I kind of had a different rounded shape pattern for my fabric. And for me, it's about the layers of texture working together to give the illusion of, the luminosity of bird feathers and the lightness of bird feathers. And so I tried to play with layers of material that I thought would move in an interesting way and reflect light in an interesting way. And so, yeah, each of the birds has their individual costume that is reflective of the actual bird. Let me see if I can remember all of the birds we did. We did a parakeet. The parakeet was the one that was already extinct. I played a kingfisher. We had a woodpecker, a red tanger, a yellow throat, and a quail.
So extinction is it's obviously a very difficult subject. It's a sad subject, and puppets are usually associated with kids. So did you have kids in the audience? And if so, what was their response? And what was the response of the adults as well to watching an alarming topic portrayed in this way?
Sure. I think puppetry is for everybody. I don't think it's only for kids, and I don't gear my work specifically towards children. I, of course, work with children and I'm open to their participation in engaging with my work, but I make puppets and puppetry for everybody. And the response that I got from the audience was really touching. A lot of people commented on how effective the movement was in illustrating this concept of extinction and loss. I think that people struggle with, they see headlines or they see statistics or, a lot of the information that we consume about these topics feels separate from the emotional weight of that reality. And so something in the movement and the portrayal of these birds and the portrayal of the loss of these birds spoke to people in a way that deeply impacted them emotionally, which is all I'm trying to do with my work. And I think that's what makes puppetry unique as an art form, is that ability to emotionally connect, to project yourself onto the experiences of the puppet, because it's an abstract figure. It's not depicting something so specific that you don't identify with it. It has the air to breathe around it and to kind of capture whatever you need that puppet to be in that moment. And so I think it really breaks down the walls of people being able to connect with these concepts.
Yeah, puppets are magical because when you see them, that they're not human, but at the same time you relate to them. You don't relate to them as if you would like, a block of wood that somebody was holding in their hand.
Right.
Because they seem to have a life of their own. And I remember, so you and I talked about a year ago when I first discovered your work, and I remember you saying that you had done a performance, and people afterwards didn't even recognize that you had been the person there with the puppet, even though you weren't disguised at all. So can you just talk a little bit about that magical aliveness of puppets and the kind of the invisibility of the puppeteer?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I'd actually love to read my artist statement.
Yeah, please.
Directly from my website. I consider myself a zookeeper. I sculpt and construct puppet creatures with animal qualities that capture natural forms and movements through a tension between realism and abstraction. I give life to these creature puppets using intense focus to transfer enigmatic energy through my hands. This allows me to disappear behind the puppet to become a visible, invisible puppeteer. My enduring puppets emotionally connect to audiences, like Lucy, the ice picker bird, plucking a delicate feather to reach out for interaction. It's in that moment when the puppet is authentically alive that we discover true magic. So part of my intention as a puppeteer that is different from other puppeteers in the field is I want to be fully visible to the audience when I am puppeteering. I don't try to mask myself in any kind of way. I don't wear a hood. I sometimes don't even wear all black behind my puppets. Because the moment that I disappear, even though I'm right in front of your face, is such a magical moment because all of my energy and all of my focus is going into that puppet creature, and it takes on the life and the focus and the movement, and people get so engrossed in that they forget that I'm there.
So you mentioned Lucy the ice picker bird, which is such a great name. So tell us about Lucy the ice picker bird. How
Yes,
did she come about?
I created her as part of a very ambitious project with, I work often with an immersive theater company called Submersive Productions. If you're not familiar with their work, please look them up. They are a wonderful company of good people. And we did a very ambitious project called H.T. Darling's Incredible Museum, where we took over all 4 levels of the Peel Museum that's in downtown Baltimore, and created a museum of oddities and creatures that were captured from another planet to put on display. That was kind of the story of this explorer going off, and it had, you know, a commentary on colonialism, commentary on stealing items to put on display in museums and things like that. And so in the world of the show, this other planet we called New Galapagos had its own set of environmental circumstances. And so the planet itself has an icy tundra as the surface. And then underground is a network of caves and other fauna and flora. And so I created the ice picker bird as a surface living creature. And her head is based off of an ice axe. And she was taken to be put on display in the museum in a little environment enclosure type thing. And she was separated from her nestlings. And part of my storyline as the puppeteer in that show was Lucy going and trying to find her babies and then trying to like capture her babies and hide them from the curators and things like that.
So do you have a photo of Lucy that you could show us?
Oh, sure. I also have her right over there on my
Oh,
shelf.
go get her.
Go get her.
Yeah, please. We can wait.
When I do puppetry workshops for professional actors, they get really upset with me when I don't bring the bird. They're like, "How could you not bring the bird?" Oh, good. Let me get her ready so that she can make an entrance.
Okay, we want Lucy to make an entrance. Oh, we see her feathers coming. Oh. Oh gosh, she's beautiful.
Yeah, she's just a silly ice picker bird.
And are her babies under the ice or what?
No, her babies are in her nest. I
Okay, that's good.
Like to see them. But her neck is a slinky, and so she has a lot of movement. I don't know if I have any feathers rigged, but she knows how to pluck a feather. I usually have to rig them ahead of time to know which ones are loose.
Yes. So
And
you
she
would give Lucy
hand a
plucks a
feather
feather
out.
and gives it to somebody in the audience.
Mhm.
That must be a treat.
She's gonna exit.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing Lucy out. Nice to meet you, Lucy.
Yeah, I need to do more work with her. I've I have daydreamed about creating a little you know, Animal Planet style piece talking about her and her habitat and how she's adapted to the environment and all sorts of
Oh, good. Yes.
about her as a creature.
That would be great. So, and seeing Lucy also, we realize that your puppets are big. I mean, they're not like the little kinds of puppets where you would, like shadow puppets or puppets like in a Punch and Judy show. They're big puppets.
Yeah. I try to really embody the puppet in a literal sense. I have a chameleon puppet that I sit inside of, that is a lantern puppet that changes color. I have vultures that I am, kind of, I guess, the body of the vulture, the neck of the vulture comes all the way up and the head is around my hand. And so I'm interested in scale. I am a small bodied person, but I want to operate the largest puppets possible. And I think that a lot can change in the field of puppetry for making more ergonomically sound puppets that fit a range of body types that do not harm or impact the body in negative ways. I think that a lot of puppets are really heavy, or they need a certain body type in order to wield them. And I want to break out of those practices. I build my puppets out of lightweight materials and natural materials such as reed and a fabric called muslin, and hula hoops and lightweight materials. I'm not trying to use PVC. I'm not trying to use those like hefty, heavy materials. Even foam can add up and be heavy sometimes. And so being lightweight and being natural materials is also very important to my puppet building practice.
So how old were you when you first started getting interested in puppets, and what were you like as a kid that brought you on this path that involves so many different kinds of approaches?
I love answering that question, because when I performed as Lucy in H.T. Darling's Incredible Museum, my family came out to see the show, including my younger brother. And after the show, my brother made this comment where he was like, it didn't occur to me until seeing you on stage up there that you have been doing this your whole life. I would play with stuffed animals and, give them little personalities and conversations and move them in such a way that I like really articulated how they moved and how they behaved. And I said a lot without using words at all. And he said that it was my brother's observation that I've been doing this my whole life, from stuffed animals to Legos to all sorts of just playing around as a child. And then I became interested in sculpture through my education and arts interests. And in college, I had friends who wanted to direct a musical that involved puppets, and they said, "You're a sculptor, could you build all of our puppets?" And I said, "Sure." And I have a background in martial arts, which I have incorporated into my puppetry practice, as far as, really staying grounded and having a strong base and moving energy in such a particular way. There's a lot of intersection for me between martial arts, puppetry, sculpture, all of these artistic practices I want to combine into one. And so, yeah, my brother said, I've been doing this my whole life, and all of my other interests have kind of coalesced in puppetry arts.
That's fascinating. And I'm curious about this intersection between the martial arts and how, because it does relate to your statement that, there's this enigmatic energy that's moving through your hands. So they really do seem to be, collaborative practices.
Yes, it's one of my goals. I've been trying to get a piece off of the ground. That's a vultures piece, and it's a climate justice related piece where the vultures are going to swarm and consume the earth. And I want to blend martial arts and puppetry for that piece in particular, and see if I did a little bit of capoeira when I visited Brazil a number of years ago. The base of my practice is in Taekwondo. And so also the relationship between puppeteers, taking care of each other, but also, in capoeira, it's amazing to watch the people who are really good at it to really fight, genuinely fight, but also they're dancers, they're taking care of each other, they're connected in these very, very strong ways. And I don't know, I'm just very interested in bringing that into puppetry practice and seeing where it goes.
So tell us more about the vultures. Why vultures, and why are they eating the earth?
I am fascinated with vultures. I don't know what it is about them. I think that they have a bad reputation, and I would love to transform people's attitudes towards vultures. I would love for people to notice vultures more. I think that vultures play an important role in the life cycle all over the world, and I'm interested in their symbolism, symbols of Mother Earth, symbols of transformation and renewal. A lot of cultures believe that vultures are part of the cycle of reincarnation. And I want to engage with these practices mindfully, of course. I have consulted a dramaturg from the Indigenous community in putting together this idea of this work. I want the piece itself to be rooted in ritual practice and setting the space, and the vultures having reverence for what their work is and what their role is in the life cycle. And I don't know, I just think that I'm interested in beauty in otherwise ugly ideas or otherwise ugly seeming concepts. I think there's a lot of beauty in there.
Yeah, that's what Radical Joy for Hard Times is all about. You know, going to places that are hurt and finding the beauty that is there and making more beauty. So why are your vultures eating the earth?
In order to initiate some kind of transformation, in order to initiate some kind of how can the earth be reborn anew as a result of going through this consumption process? I think the vultures are also an allegory for our own humanity and human consumption of natural resources. You know, I'm trying to draw a few parallels in there with these ideas, and ultimately it's, I think, what the audience will take away from it, much like the Birdland extinction ritual, where people had takeaways I didn't expect at all. I had no idea it would be emotionally impactful in the ways that it was. And so I have the same kind of intention with the vultures piece. I also would love to do some kind of audience participation. I don't know what that looks like yet. Where all of us are somehow vultures. You know, I want us to literally be the swarm. It's more than the 6 performers. It's all of us together. And I haven't figured out how to bring all of that in, but part of my practice too as an artist is we call it devised ensemble performance. And so I don't have a script that I'm working from necessarily. For me, it's about bringing in collaborators and us building the show together. Everybody has an equal voice in contributing, and we will build a ritual practice that we do in rehearsals. We will build characters together and story together, and it's not me that has ownership over that process, right? It's all of us will decide collectively how to move through that space together, and so we'll see what emerges in the piece as a result of that work.
It sounds wonderful. And it's true, vultures really are, I mean, I like vultures as well. And I think that obviously the reason that they are disliked is for the very reason that they are so valuable, is that they go to what's dead, you know, and they take care of it, and they're nourished on it. They're nourished on what's dead. So wouldn't it be amazing to think about what's dead on the planet? I mean, not only in terms of living things, but like, what are our attitudes that are dead or need to die, or what are our habits, you know, that are dead or need to die? And it's exciting.
Thank you. Exactly. Yeah, I've been trying to get that piece off the ground for a while. I was going to do it before the pandemic, you know, we all know what happened. So
Yeah.
Trying to gain momentum on that again has been a huge goal of mine.
So can you talk more about this, the concept of finding beauty in ugliness and how that influences your work?
I think it really just comes from a natural fascination with the natural world, and a deep passion for wanting to preserve the world. I call myself a zookeeper in my artistic statement because I have this, I guess, fantasy or dream of creating a zoo of puppet creatures as like my best form of conservation. If we can't go to a zoo because the animals are extinct or because we've lost that piece of the world, my puppets will be what's left of those creatures. And I want them to be accurate. I want them to move with like the creature did. And so I do a lot of study of the creatures of this world, and I just think there's so much beauty there that I want to capture, that I know I'll never capture, of course. My puppets are never going to be a real lion, you know, or anything like that. But if I can make my own approximation, then I've done what I can to preserve the beauties of the plant.
Your puppets talk.
No, they don't at all. My puppets are completely silent, and that's another part of my practice that I'm interested in exploring more, are the subtleties of creature expression, right? You brought that up in my introduction. I think so much can be communicated without words, and there's a lot of subtlety in movement, and there are a lot of discoveries that can be made by practicing movement and seeing the effect movement has on a puppet, on a mask. You don't even need an articulated jaw, you know, in a puppet to speak. A mask and the way that it moves and tilts shows all of the arrays of emotion. And so digging into those subtleties is important to me and part of my puppet practice. I don't think, yeah, there's so much more that you can say without words.
So when you brought Lucy out and you mentioned you were looking, she was looking, excuse me, she was looking for a feather that she could pluck out. And I know that was part of your performance with her. In what ways was Lucy interacting with the audience, and what are some other ways that you've brought the audience into, in a way that I really do think it's ceremonial, it's ritual, that you're not only up there performing, but you are engaging with people?
Yeah, that feather moment of connection. It was really interesting to see how audiences responded to that. And there was an array of responses. A lot of people kept the feather and were like, oh my God, this was so special. This is just for me. And a lot of people felt uncomfortable taking the feather, and they were like, I can't accept this gift. I need to give it back. And they would try to like put it back on her body or try to hand it to me. And I'm like, I'm not here. The bird is here, you know? So it was really interesting to see how people took that moment. I mentioned my chameleon puppet. That's this big head that I sit inside, and the tongue comes out, and I invite audiences to write a story or draw a picture on the chameleon tongue. And so, actually, I might have a bunch right here. Yeah, I have
Oh
an
my gosh.
invitation to respond to a prompt, and people write. And I have some more in here somewhere, but sometimes I prompt people with like, I draw a picture of like, the chameleon is hungry. What do you do next? You know, draw what comes next. And there's a whole journey of, oh, the chameleon rides a skateboard to visit the Eiffel Tower, or, you know, whatever people have drawn on the tongue to contribute to the story. And I think it's really amazing and interesting to see that unexpected moment of connection and the ability to contribute to something. And now I have a record of everyone who has contributed to the chameleon through the tongue scroll.
Well, and you know, you made me think of something. It was like last year I went to what's called the Earth Mass, which is done by Matthew Fox, who's written a lot of books about kind of a new spirituality. And there was a woman there who had made large puppets. They were about, I don't know, they were maybe 4 feet, but they were 3-dimensional puppets made out of clear material, and they had little white lights inside of them. And they were of different animals, and they were quite realistic. And they were all on poles. And I don't know, maybe 10 of them. And 6 or 7 of us were invited to like hold the poles and move around the audience at a certain point of this ceremony when the lights were all out. And so these beautiful dancing figures were going along. And I had the owl, and its wings flopped. And I was carrying it around in the darkness, and then every now and then I would sort of make it swoop down on people, and you could just see it was like wonder in people's eyes. It wasn't like, oh, here's a person with a thing. It was like, oh, this owl came close just to me. It was very, very personal. Beautiful. I got to tell the puppeteer that the following day, because it really fits with what you're saying about people's shyness about taking that feather from Lucy, or else they're just, their utter gratitude and astonishment that the bird would give me a feather.
Yeah, it's a really special moment, and puppets have that magical essence to just, I don't know, to connect with somebody. This is another interesting thing. When I'm inside the chameleon, it's so funny, those big puppets. People forget that there's a person inside there. I don't know if people who are inside mascot costumes experience this too or something, but when I'm in the chameleon, I might as well be invisible. I might as well be, it's like so bizarre because I'm in this giant thing, and people just walk by you like you're a drinking fountain, or you know what I mean, any other piece of scenery, like I'm a tree suddenly, and have whole conversations like right next to me, but they forget that I'm in there as a person. And so I don't know what it is about drawing some kind of line or separation, where you're right, the puppet creates its own reality and exists on its own terms as separate from our realm of being. And I don't know, there's just something really interesting in that shift of perspective.
Yeah, it is magical. So Jess, we talked about you bringing some images. I wonder if you would like to just show us some of your images and tell us what they tell us about them.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Is that working?
Yeah, it's great.
This is my website. And I just have kind of a swath of different images from my work. These performance pictures are from more recent performance. I'm part of an environmental and arts activism group called Vital Matters, where we focus on climate justice and produce events that invite artists and environmental workers to collaborate and generate conversation to call for public action against climate change. And so every 2 years, we participate in Climate Change Theater Action, which commissions playwrights from all over the world to contribute. And so I have been an artist and producer on those works, and this was from our event back in December. And I made this little crab puppet for that piece.
It's a crab, you said?
Yeah, this crab out of gardening gloves.
Oh.
And then I have other pieces. Here's the chameleon that I've mentioned with people writing on the tongue. I can get
Oh yes,
of that if you're
the very
interested.
wide tongue.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through to show. Here is a image from the Birdland
yeah,
that we've been talking about. Here's my bear.
oh, the bear is amazing.
Thank you. It's got some glowing eyes. There's Lucy.
There's Lucy, yeah.
In her environment. And then yeah, just some more little creatures and puppets and paintings. I've got a rhino. So here, let me go into the puppetry performance tab. Here's more about the chameleon.
What's that figure with the orange and that interesting figure?
Yeah, that's a wasp character that I didn't play. That's a different performer in that costume, but I created the mask for that character. This was an outdoor piece called Recollection that we performed during the pandemic. And so it was, a distant, safe performance for audiences to engage with. You can see we're all wearing masks, even though we're
Oh, yes.
outside.
What a great idea.
And here's, an example of the tongue and the contributions that people have made. You see the chameleon on the skateboard going to France, It was a lot of fun for people to see this weird creature out at the park. We did this at a public park in Baltimore, Druid Hill Park. And yeah, I've used the chameleon in several other events here and there. It's a very good parade piece. Anytime there's a puppet parade, I'm like, I gotta bring the chameleon. Every year, Baltimore does a lantern festival. I need to get the chameleon into the lantern festival because I haven't really been able to perform with it at night yet, which is, it's a lantern puppet. The whole point is that you see the lights and the light changing abilities and the qualities.
Oh, yes. How wonderful.
Let me go into, if you want to see more of Lucy. This is, all of H.G. Darling's incredible museum. I played several puppet characters during this performance. That you can see there she is visiting her nestlings. There's a close-up on her little babies. I can bring them over to the right over here. This is a bird moth that I made in that same
A bird moth?
Yes, a bird moth.
Oh.
The bird moth is really cute. I have him over here. And these are some masks that I carved. I was very fortunate to do a Del Arte International School of Physical Theater in California. Does a study abroad program to Bali, Indonesia. And random people who are not in their MFA program can join that program. And so in 2017, I joined them and carved these masks out of wood.
Mm.
Yeah, I've got all sorts of little guys. This is a snail hydra. Every time a head was removed, more heads would pop out. These are all creatures of the planet of New Galapagos.
Oh.
Since we discussed Birdland, I can pull out more images of that. I mentioned the bird skull masks in the center and the nest that we danced around. This is me right here with my back to the camera dancing around the circle, and you can see the birds that had already stepped in and were beginning their extinction process. And you can see too that the audience is looking pretty captivated by this moment. This was our curator. This is Lynn, and she played the quail. I think this here is a rehearsal of all of us in our final positions with the bird skull masks on, having gone extinct. This was the parakeet, the first one to fall, and the only bird in the group that is already extinct. So I tried to give it the most vibrant costume of the group. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
It really is magical.
And then fabrication wise, I've made all sorts of creatures and puppets. Here's a rhino from Rhinoceros. I need to get more production photos from them, but like I said, I just want to continue creating a zoo of puppets. I have a rhino now, I have a bear, I have vultures. I can kind of get into the vultures so that you see what I mean by how
wow.
I work with them and have them as kind of full body creatures. And so these are 2 of the 6 that I would like to make for my future piece.
Oh. And you're working with two of them at once now here.
Yes, and it's quite a challenge, doing one thing with one side and a different thing with the other side. It takes a lot of brain practice.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's pretty much.
Well, thank you.
In exploring my website more, jessraspdesign.com.
Yeah, thank you. So what are you working on now?
Right, I have a few things in the works. Submersive Productions that I've mentioned, the immersive theater company. they have a very exciting project coming up where they are going to be collaborating with the National Aquarium in Baltimore for a series called Voyages. And they've commissioned me to build a puppet for that piece. And so I have a prototype that is due this July. For the event itself will be in July 2025. And so these conversations are very long-term in development. And it's been on my list of dreams to make a manta ray puppet. And so I'll be working on the prototype for a manta ray puppet for that aquarium project. And then one of the ideas, they asked us a question, or we collaborate with scientists for this, and what scientific question do we want to ask? And the question that I have is, how big is big?
How big is what being?
How big is big?
Big,
Right?
okay.
The ocean is massive, and the creatures of the ocean are also massive. So there's no way of knowing how big the creatures are. So I would love to make as big a manta ray as I can feasibly engineer that would also fit in their space. So we'll see. I'm going to start with something smaller scale, maybe closer to the size of an actual regular sized ray, and then see how I can scale it up to make it bigger. The other question that one of our collaborators is asking is, what puppet show do the creatures there want to see? So kind of a fun brain exercise of what puppets do the fish want to see?
Yeah, good question. Do you think the manta ray is the answer?
I think it can be one answer, and I think all of the other puppeteers and contributing artists to that piece will have their own version of that answer. And so I'm looking forward to that. And then I have been pursuing learning American Sign Language for about 2 years now, and I am interested in continuing on to an interpreter preparation program. And so in the future, I would love to incorporate ASL into my puppetry performances. I would love to collaborate with deaf artists and train deaf actors as puppeteers, and provide more accessibility to theater for that community, and continue that work of advocacy and allyship. But also, all of those spaces you tread lightly, because I know that I'm not part of the deaf community. I am grateful for the time and the opportunity to connect with this group of people. And I also think that more opportunity should be given to deaf artists and growth and expansion in these areas where there hasn't been access, or as much access as I'd like to see. So if I can be part of building that bridge, I'm very interested in that.
Yeah, and if that work continues with puppetry, it's perfect because speech isn't necessary.
Exactly. And especially, yes, my puppetry practice in particular, I think there's so much intersection between ASL expression and puppetry expression, and inviting folks to explore and discover what they discover about themselves through that work is really, really an opportunity that I want to present to artists.
Yeah, thank you. Well, so I wanted to let everybody know, Harriet, I should have said it at the beginning, Harriet had another commitment today, so she's not here. She will be back next time. But for fear of disconnecting something important, I'm not going to check Facebook and see if there are comments and questions. So apologies for that. And Jess, I want to know if there's anything else that you'd like to tell us about your work, any other message that you would like to leave us with about why you're doing what you're doing and why it matters.
Oof, that's a hefty question to answer.
Yes.
I guess I have tried to answer a bit of it of if my puppets leave some kind of legacy for how I see the natural world, and trying to capture as close as I can what I see in the natural world. I want my work to also be about the practice itself. And I do think this is different from other puppetry artists and other people who pursue puppetry, is the devised ensemble performance, the creating ritual together, integrating practice. I think that a lot can be done to move the theater industry forward, the puppetry community forward, when it comes to taking care of our emotional bodies as performers, when it comes to setting physical boundaries and creating a supportive community that is collective, has collective mindset as opposed to individual mindset. And I want my work to embody that practice and to be a safe space for folks to show up as themselves and to contribute with equal voice. And so I think that more intention needs to be brought to theater practice, and I'm hoping to take steps in that direction as a leader and as a contributing artist to the spaces that I create.
Well, it's fascinating work. I mean, what you're doing, and just the magic of bringing alive that which is not only alive now, but endangered and even extinct, you know, with that parakeet. It's a really different way of helping people to understand what's going on and involving them in the process as well. So thank you. Good luck.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I want you to think about all of these creatures. I want you to think about the environment, and I want my work to inspire that emotional response and emotional connection. Because for me, it's about that core, that emotional core of the work. And I try to center that and focus on that so that the impact sticks with people in the long run.
And I'm sure it does. Yeah. Whether people get a feather or not, it'll stick with them.
Yes. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak today. It's been a really lovely conversation. Thank you for the opportunity to share my ideas and my work. I hope that people are interested.
Yeah, I'm sure they will be. Jess Rassp, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we have our time in the Earth Exchange Cafe is coming to an end now. So you've finished your tea and your coffee, and the music has turned down. People are putting the books and the magazines, the newspapers back on the shelves, and your chairs are scraping away from the tables. We'll be meeting again next month in June. We're still working on who our guest will be in June, so stay tuned for that on our various sources. And we'll see you again in June for the Earth Exchange Cafe. So thank you all for being here. Thanks again, Jess.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.